Hi, David Odell here with Odell Complete Concrete. This is our first day on the job site. We're going to be doing a retaining wall. It's a property line retaining wall. And you can see here's the old wall, and it's leaning. It's got some cracks in it. It's hollow. So we're going to remove this wall and the footing, if there is a footing. And here's some of the tools we'll be using to remove the wall. We also have the plate compactor made by Tomahawk. We're going to use that to compact the new area for the new footing. The new retaining wall will probably be about 1 block higher than what we see here. So I want to get the new blocks above that grade on the high side. So as we start knocking it down, we can see why it was leaning and why the wall was failing to begin with. Although it did last quite some time. I mean, that wall's probably been there for at least 60 years. So that's pretty good. I mean, who knows when the soil went in behind it. That may have came in a lot later. It may have been a freestanding wall at one point with a slope on the other side for that yard, but that's most likely the dirt built up over the years. But as a freestanding wall, it did pretty well. But once you hit it with a load of dirt, it started coming apart quickly. So our vertical rebar that they have in there is number 3 rebar, and there's not very much of it. As you can see, I see 2 pieces there. They're about 4 feet apart. So that's the only blocks that had grout in them, was where the vertical rebar was, and that was at about 3 or 4 feet apart. No horizontal bar, no bond beam. Another reason it failed. On the bottom course of that existing block wall, they left all the bottom head joints of the block open for weep holes, so the water could go through there without building up pressure behind the wall. And that's always a good idea. The basic idea they had on this was pretty good. They just cut a lot of corners, I would say, when they put it in here. Now this is going to come out, this old fence gate, and it was all redwood. That's all original gate. Some real clear redwood. Really hard to find that quality wood anymore, actually. The reason we're taking that fence out and the gate is because we're going to put a column here, and then we're going to hang a new gate at some point. We won't be doing the gate, but we will be doing the column, a 12 by 12 6-foot high column on the end. Also, we're going to do a column on the entrance end of the wall. Possibly put a lantern up there, maybe run some low voltage. But as you can see at the top of the hill, the footing was really meager. It was probably 8 inches thick max, so that came out really nicely and easily. But as we got down here a little bit lower, the concrete got to about 1 foot thick almost. I'm just going to overcut this wall, that way I have some space to get behind the new wall. There's the footing coming out right now. But the reason I'm overcutting it is so I can get some waterproofing behind the new wall. And that's why I need that space. And then I'll just backfill after the wall's cured out. A lot of roots we ran into, and we were all of that ivy. These are the roots from the ivy that was growing in there. So now I'm just scooping out. I'm taking some nice big scoops and going down even further below where the old footing was, because we're going to make it wider and deeper. We're going to go about 14 inches deep of concrete, maybe 18, right in that ballpark, and then about 2 feet wide. And then on the footing design, we're going to run 5/8 rebar, 2 number 5s the long way. And then for the verticals, we'll run number 4s every 32 inches. And then on the top block, we're going to run a bond beam, and that's going to get a number 4 rebar in it as well, horizontally. Tying all the verts and horizontals, top and bottom, together. We found an old pipe up there. We don't know what it was. No idea, but it was a steel pipe. Really good quality steel because there was really not much rust on it, which is another thing that's hard to find, actually. Good steel pipe that doesn't rust. Here we are at the dump, just getting rid of some debris. The block I actually took to the recycling center, and they crush it, make road base out of it, mix it with the concrete and asphalt. But here's what we have. Getting back to that pipe, yeah, that pipe was in good shape. I don't know what's in it, but we didn't break it, fortunately, so I don't need to find out what's in it. It's probably an old abandoned. In this area where we're at, there's a lot of old oil derricks and stuff, and they abandoned the pipes underground. Most likely it's an old from an old rig, oil well rig. Now we're just establishing some grade. We have a lot of slope on the side of this, so we're going to have a lot of step downs in the footing as well as the top of the block. There's a couple number 5s. Those are pretty much in place right now, real close. There's not a lot of room in there. You can't really go wrong. When you throw them in, they kind of land where they go. Now that the horizontals are tied in place, end to end, I'm just marking the rebar. I have a permanent pin marker, the really wide ones, so you can really see the mark. So I just laid out every 32 all the way down. Now I'm tying the rebar. I put some tails on that. I have a little rebar bender going there in the background. Cut and bend one tool. We're putting about 6-inch tails on these, and that's going to go underneath the horizontal. We're going to alternate directions on the tails. Now instead of hanging a board and tying off the rebar to that, I'm just going to tie the rebar together on an angle. And when the concrete goes in there, I'll bust the tie wire from the top and then plumb up the verts. We're looking at 2 pallets of block here. That's what this calls for to finish this project. 16-inch long, 8-inch wide, 8-inch high block. It's going to be solid grouted. So that line represents the inside face of the block. Now on the rebar here, as you can see, I'm just pulling it up as the concrete goes in. Now the verticals will still stay in the right position because the horizontal's not moving and the verticals are tied to the horizontal. So all I have to do is untie that top tie off of those angle bars and then plumb them up, and it's on the money. The important thing to remember when you're putting in the footing is that whatever grade your footing's at has to be lower than, you know, your final product. Like if you're going to pour a driveway over it, if you're going to landscape over it. So we had to take that into consideration, the top of driveway elevation, in case that driveway gets wider. which most likely it will in the near future. And we're going to pour the concrete right on top of the footing without having to deal with a footing that's in the way. Here's the mix. It's a real nice looking one, real stiff. This is a little drone footage also. Right now we have a string line tied off, and that string line's in level, and what we ended up doing was just measure down from that line in 8-inch increments and adjust the concrete in the steps that we need. Here's a little, you can see some of those step downs. There's one there. So that's probably all 32, and then it jumps up to 24 and so on. Here's the column block. That'll go in there first. That's a 12 by 12 by 8 high. String lines are all in. So far so good on the vertical rebar placement. Every now and then you'll run into a vertical that has to be shifted, and that's when a hickey bar comes in handy, because you can double bend it and make it come up in the right place. Although we didn't have a hickey bar, so we were fortunate that they all lined up. Now as this concrete dries a little bit more, right now the idea of throwing the dirt over that footing is to try to get it to go off, because we're going to be working and walking along that concrete, and as you walk along the footing it moves the block when it's wet, when you're doing everything same day. So you throw a little dirt over it, and that sucks some moisture out of there, cures it up a little quicker. Then also we're flattening it out at the same time, so when we walk through there it's a lot easier than walking over bumps and rocks and hills and stuff. Inevitably what we'll do as the concrete cures out, we'll even scrape down a little bit more just to make sure that we are lower than finish elevation. As you can see, that's our last block right there, and that's the open bond beam on top. The cap on this block's just gonna round it off with some mortar. When I go to grout, I'll use the grout actually to get kind of a contour in that cap. That way when I throw the mortar over the top, it's a very thin coat. If you go thick on the mortar on your cap, it's going to crack up on you. So you kind of do everything with the concrete mix and just touch up with some mortar. A little drone action here. That's Manuel there, and he brought himself a helper. I've actually known him for about 30 years. We kind of started pretty young, and he's pretty good at it at this point, you could say. So basically what we did is I'm just buttering up the block ends, and then I'm hitting running the rail on the block, and then he's just sticking them on there. We will be running a little bit of conduit in this end column before we grout. We're going to run a 3/4 with a nice long sweeps, and eventually some low voltage coming up. Now here's the grout day. We calculated this to be about 2 yards of grout here, and I guess we didn't have anything left when the truck left because I ordered 2 and we used it all. As you can see there, I'm throwing that concrete on the top to create that contour in the cap. So all these horizontal rebars you see actually jab into the columns as well. Plus we're locked in at the bottom end foundation. There was 2 pieces of existing rebar that came out of the original foundation where we started at, and we left those stubbed out, so we tied in the foundation as well, and then horizontals come right into the column. But here's how I'm shaping up the concrete to start with. They actually make some metal round tools for this, but I just like doing it by hand. I found with those tools, when you end up using those, you always get a lot of excess running down the outsides of the walls. When you use your hand, you can keep everything a lot cleaner. Well, that caution tape you see hanging on my neck, I'm going to actually use that just to smooth off the top. You'll see that in a minute here. It works nice on bull nose steps and stuff like that as well. They do make tools for that too, but I just use the basic stuff, whatever's on hand. There, I just pulled the caution tape across the top, and that kind of smooths it out and gives it a nice shape. Now all we have to do is let it dry a little bit, and then we'll just hit it with a damp sponge to really give it that nice detail. There's the sponge work. The long-term plan for the neighbor is leveling that out and then parking an RV on the high side, and there'd be no problem at all for this particular wall. Right now we've already waterproofed it. We've left the bottom weep holes open. And this is what it looks like when it's all done. Magnificent. Oh, there's that conduit. There's the little stub out. We're just going to run some low voltage there. Put a little light on top. The thing about the waterproofing is we brought it up to the dirt level, so the top back of those blocks, they don't have the waterproofing because they're above grade. That's kind of crucial because it wouldn't look that great if it came up above. So I figure if the last wall lasted 60 years, this one should last about 120. Anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy the video. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to get notified when we upload the next video. Have a good one.